So like I said, this is more or less the post-production of your architecture files, and really it's kind of when everything of the design has been finalized in some way. However, again, I just want to really explain these tools so that you guys can start to fit them however you see fit, right? Whether, I saw Louis today tracing some of his drawings. I mean, that's totally exciting to hear that he's using some of the advice. Making that model real quick, not modeling everything out, but printing it and using it, right? That way he doesn't have to worry about scale. He doesn't have to worry about shade and shadow. He can even get all those things sort of calculated for him and trace it, right? And everybody's like, ooh, Louis, you're so great, right? But what it allows too is to add some of the analog stuff that you may or may not know how to actually add in a digital realm or have the time to do so. So really glad to see that some of you guys are using those tools already. Anyway, let's get to some more tools. So in my case, I want to open up that base file that I gave you guys. So I will go ahead and go to my documents, SAC, graphics 3, 2024, and base elevation. So as a base, actually I give you quite a few things. And something that I actually learned this week and that I should probably say more often is half the time that we get Illustrator, especially if it's on the school computer, somebody's already messed with the tools and everything's kind of messed up. And to be frank, I mess up these tools all the time by accidentally just moving them and things like that. So in the same way that you would always, of course, use Essentials Classic, you can also reset your Essentials Classic space, which honestly is really nice because I've messed it up so many times. Even right now it's messed up, right? And I had to reset it again. So again, that little box where you're gonna click and get Essentials Classic anyway, I like to reset my classics. That way I can actually get down to the nitty gritty of what I actually need. So in my case, by default, love it, properties. I'm gonna go ahead and take my layers. So I learned that you can just take the whole thing and of course put it in the according spot that you want it. We're gonna need swatches and maybe strokes today. Right, so definitely always one that I like to have is strokes. So again, kind of just going over the basics of Illustrator as well. I mean, some of us, yeah, we know how to change line weights and things like that, but we're definitely getting a little more advanced and a little more Illustrator specific today. Obviously, I'll go over it again in computer graphics with even a little bit more that I think my computer graphics students need to know. But let's get the swatches. So that's right there, or there it is. Little swatches, and we're going to use this a lot today. I learned a lot about swatches. So first thing that we want to do is load some swatches, and it already has some built in. So you'll see that there's this little, almost looks like a little stacked books, and it says swatch library. And we're going to go down to patterns and basic graphics, and it has dots, lines, and textures for us. Once we enable one of those, we can basically put it back into our swatch board, and it creates a new tab. Again, I learn something new every day, right? And I thought that was actually kind of nice and a lot better of a reasoning for this added sub panel, to be fair. Honestly, I'm gonna make this one a lot smaller. Arguably, I don't even think I need it once I take out the tools that I need, but that's okay. But we're definitely gonna work with swatches today, and you can see that there's these arrows at the bottom as well, and it actually goes through all the different patterns that it has, and it has grass, dirt, I mean, everything. Some might see that as kind of hindering, like you have to stick with the program. So I do want to show some excellent things we can do with that as well. But let's stick to at least dots and patterns and things like that today. So by default, I mean, I've actually already given you quite a bit of stuff. But to be fair, Illustrator is a little bit different. So normally I would do my line weight first. I would just take my lines and I would take those lines and put them into Photoshop and work them myself, right? Don't get me wrong, I like to be a little bit more artistic and I don't like things to look computery. However, Illustrator does have a kind of a remarkable way of making things look computery yet sort of cartoony, which cartoony is not really bad in architecture. In fact, one could argue that it's even better than realistic. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like those photorealistic renders where you almost can't even tell if it's real or fake. Now those are actually kind of dangerous in the practical world. In fact, some architecture firms have been sued by their clients going, hey, you showed me this photorealistic rendering and the countertop is slightly more yellow, right? Well, they forgot to put a little disclaimer on there that this is not a real photo, right? And it's becoming a very real thing. So what's nice is the cartoony look. Nobody's gonna get confused and think that you're real building's going to look like a cartoon, but it gives you enough reference and communication to the client to go, oh yeah, I'm thinking granite countertops or or concrete fascia or what have you, right? It definitely starts to have a conversation about the color and overall schemes. So normally I would set the line weight first, but for right now I don't want to, and you'll of course see why. We're going to use the live paint tool today, and it's an Illustrator thing. Let's just put it that way. So in my case, first thing I want to do is make some swatches. So I'm just going to hold, I'm going to go to my box tool right here, and you'll see if you actually click on those, you can make tons of different shapes here. But I'm just going to hold shift so I can make some boxes. I can use my direct select tool, and I can hold alt if I'm on the computer, on Windows, or I can hold control on the Macintosh, and it's going to double up my piece. I can do that a couple times. In fact, I'll do it like maybe 5 times. Maybe I want to add color, maybe I want to kind of set my scheme up here, right? I want you to get used to that you can use this as a workspace. It doesn't mean like, oh, just because you put it on the page that it has to stay there, right? But there are some things that we can use as a tool to kind of help us as we go along. Some things a little bit more advanced than others, and to be fair, most of us work on a laptop, so some of the stuff that's like sort of tips in the video don't really apply to a laptop where you don't have a lot of space to work with anyway. So anyway, that probably doesn't make much sense right now, but let's continue. So we'll take these pieces, and as you can see, we can still control their outlines and the inner swatches of them. So if you click on that box and you're within the fill, and you can tell if it's the fill because, well, it's the fill and stroke, right? Of course, you have these little switch arrows to constantly swap between those, and most of us are pretty familiar with that. However, if you click on a swatch, right, it's going to actually automatically give us a texture, right? And those are pretty cool. You can also change the color of them and what have you, but I'll just stick with black and white today. So in my case, maybe I want to pick a couple of them. Maybe one for the windows. Usually I want it to be quite dark, so I'll pick that one for the windows. I'll select my next one. Maybe a concrete is involved, so I don't know, usually like a dot texture or like a stipple texture, usually for concrete. That seems kind of cool. Maybe a brick texture. Closer. And to be fair, all of these things can be rotated and scaled as well, which I'll go over next. It's kind of looks like a hairy leg, but kind of like concrete as well. Maybe if it was a little bit smaller, oh, that'd be a really nice stone pattern or brick. So again, already built into Illustrator, there's tons of things that we can use and scale them. So that one's looking pretty good. I'll keep that one. Let's try a couple of other swatches, maybe a dot. You can get some rope involved. Please don't use rope, right? We do want to be referential, right? So maybe that's like a base concrete. I don't know. Let's get fancy with the spices today. I don't know what that is, but maybe it's stucco, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it looks nice, maybe not. We can also change its color. Oh, I think you actually have to make a new stroke. I'll go over that later though, because again, some of this stuff gets kind of advanced and I don't want you to get so focused on it. And it looks good black and white anyway. Let's get a couple more though. Let's say I wanted some color swatches in there. So I don't know, maybe like a sky swatch, maybe like a light blue. And again, I do have the ability to add transparency, but I might as well already get the color close enough. We all know that it's going to print a little bit darker anyway. So even like choosing this color, we all know it's going to print like that color, right? So I'm going to go even lighter, get that blue swatch. Maybe I kind of want some darker toned colors. So maybe like a dark blue in there. And that's pretty good. So generally, I kind of have the color scheme and swatch set for these pieces. The next thing that I want to do is, of course, highlight everything. And you'll see immediately what Illustrator does. Now, when you use a live paint tool, the thing that stinks is that, well, it changes it all back into one layer, which is fine because I already have my layers in different colors. And that'll come in really handy for this next part that's going to automatically change this and put it all back into the same layer. We'll basically have to take it out and put it back in the layer. Not a huge deal, but Illustrator definitely works a little differently. However, it does have its advantages. So I'll highlight everything. In this case, you can kind of see in my layers that it basically got everything. But watch what it does next when I hit the letter K, as in kangaroo. It uses our live paint bucket tool. And what's really nice about that is, well, if I select my eyedropper tool, well, oh no, it accidentally got the whole thing. So I can't necessarily use those, but I do have them saved off, right? Oh, gotta find the right one. Of course it's that one. And of course I can use the back tool. But what's nice is, as long as there is an enclosed geometry, if I hit the letter K and of course my correct swatch that I'd like to use, I can go ahead and fill those in. So in my case, maybe the window has some blinds to it. Obviously some really big blinds, so I'll want to change the geometry scale, but let's get them in place first. And as you can see, arguably a little bit easier than Photoshop even, right? I mean, to be fair, I'll give actually a couple ways to do this in Illustrator, because this is the thing that I learned this weekend, but I'll show you the way that I normally use it as well. So we got some windows in there, sweet. Let's get some more in there. So in my case, what was my next swatch? Something like that. And what's nice is I can deselect, use my eyedropper tool, and get that swatch back. So it is kind of like a saver, but arguably I wish it could be used at the exact same time. But now it's in our swatch, so that when I select everything again and press K, we can go ahead and add that one. Oh, maybe not. Let's get that back. Or maybe we just have to find it. Wish this tool could get smaller. It doesn't look like it can. Like I said, some things aren't so great because your screen's small, but arguably it's fine. Well, let's take that piece. Sweet. And to be fair, it starts to highlight and tell you what is an enclosed region as well. So you'll notice that in my file, I've already done all that for you, right? So no big deal there. Everything is a clothesline, so you shouldn't have any issues. However, in yours, right, when you first make 2D something and you bring it into Illustrator, well, you need to be conscious of those clotheslines or if they're open, right, and things like that. But let's continue. Let's get some more pieces in there. Switch it up a little bit. Looks like I just have to find my swatch, or at least it's not changing every time that I use my eyedropper tool, but I think I did change my eyedropper tool back in the day, so it is what it is. But for the sake of today, let's just, make our floors something. You can kind of see the potential of this. So I'm going to go ahead and use that for my floors, and then maybe something different for my walls. Maybe like, no, that's way too close. Try something like that. Nah, it's still too close. Let's use some dots or something. Nah, it looks too much like Poche. It's a wild building. That's fair. So I'll go ahead and use that for my walls. Very 1970s look. Nothing wrong with that.
And you can paint on top of the texture?
Yeah. So you can change the texture a lot, and then you can even make your own textures just by like drawing stuff. I'll go over that next time though. Right. So let's just kind of nail one thing at a time. The next thing I want to show is, of course, how do you select that again? So I mean, that might be kind of hard, and especially since now that you may have noticed, it now has become all one layer, right? But what's nice is they actually still have their colors, right? So you guys see those oranges in there? The pinks, the blues. That's good because it's the way that we'll be able to select something in Illustrator. So first of all, well, I might not want gigantic blinds inside of my drawing, right? Maybe too big, and I need to actually change the scale of this crazy tic-tac pattern as well, and maybe want it to look more like a texture. So I'll go to select, or basically select the one that I want first. You'll notice that since it did group it, I might have to expand it. So anytime that you use the live paint tool, you'll see that you have to expand something because it automatically groups something. That's just something that, of course, Illustrator does. But you can ungroup it, which is nice, and select them individually. You might have to do this over and over again, by the way. Yeah, until it actually just says that they're just random individual pieces. Everybody got that so far? It does automatically group them, and according to her, there's no way around that, but I'm sure there is something we can change in the code. Anyway, don't do that, because then you'll be stuck in the same problem I have, where you change the options and nothing happens. Anyway, so we'll take that piece, we'll go to select, and I'll go to same, right? Obviously I want to choose the same appearance because I want to select everything that is that piece, and arguably it's going to select everything that is that swatch. To be fair, I could even put it on a new layer now and say, you know, concrete wall, just in case I wanted to be more organized. And I could even move it to that layer to avoid having to do this over and over again, right? So kind of backwards, at least from what I'm used to. That's okay, right? Illustrator works a little bit differently, but now we can use that piece, and arguably now I can just select all of my concrete. I can go to Object, Transform, and Scale. Now where it gets important here is you do want to be zoomed in a little bit, I guess before I did that, but we want to not transform the object and just transform the pattern. So in my case, maybe I want it 50% smaller. I'll do that, and of course that looks a little bit better, right? A little bit more like a texture and less like Tic Tacs on my wall. I'll zoom in a little bit. We could probably go even smaller on that. So we'll take everything, Object. Say I want to rotate it as well. Of course I can rotate it, say 30 degrees. Sweet, right? Switch it up a little bit. In fact, I might realize, well, I kind of want like maybe all these to be rotated a different way so that it reads as a slightly different texture. That might be kind of nice. Transform, rotate, and something like that. Maybe we change it to 60. But it really does start to differentiate between those two. And then arguably, I could still even change their opacity. Right, so I could still even give it some line weight to those direct pieces. But as you can see, this is definitely a final drawing thing where you're dialing in things just right. That way you can print it and of course communicate to your clients or studio professor. But we got some of those pieces. Let's change this one. So again, I just select one of them, select the same appearance. Now in my case, I could choose the fill color because they're all the same fill color, right? So I'll select the appearance of all those, Object, Transform, and in my case I'm going to go with the scale. Let's go with like 25%. I want it to look like dark windows. Sweet. Now let's continue the rest. So I'll immediately do the same thing. I may need to expand or explode it. It's kind of like expand is like explode in Illustrator. If you're familiar, of course, with Rhino. So we'll take all those pieces. Oh, don't do that. I accidentally hit delete. Anyway, we'll take all those pieces. We'll hit K again so that we can fill in stuff. And in my case, I do want these color swatches. Supposedly, you're supposed to be able to hit eyedropper tool and just select the one that you want to do, but clearly that's not working on mine. But definitely try it on yours because that's definitely the way that she did it. So it's worth noting and trying yourself. But if it's not working, that's okay. We'll just find that color again. In my case, I want to use the dark pieces actually on that fascia. I think that might look kind of nice. And then I'm going to use the dark pieces to fill in my mullions to kind of give it that dark shadowy look. And then finally, I'll probably just make my sky blue. To be fair, I could probably do that right now. If I take that outer piece, there it is, and eyedropper tool, and send it to the back. Obviously it's over everything, so I'll go ahead and put it on my outlines there. Sweet. So already looking pretty sweet, not too shabby, and obviously fills in that piece as well. Let's see, what else can we do here? Yeah, let's get those pieces. So we'll get them all. Instead of a swatch, I'll basically just choose a color. right? Obviously not there. I basically want to change my fill color. Okay. And what we want to fill it in with, perfect. Actually, I want the darker one. But I don't want it to change everything. Let's see if it does. Nope. Sweet. Not sure why it's not getting the inside lines. It's like an overall line in there. Hold on, let's figure this out. It's like a new line generated there. Let's go back, just make sure. It's not finding my lines, and it might be because I have everything on one layer, so let's find out. Select everything, letter K. Okay, it appears to be working now. But now I can select my color. Arguably, I did want that one, and the eyedropper tool isn't working for me. Might work for you, so that's okay. Sweet. So obviously I'm just covering up my texture that the previous swatch had anyway. Just in case that's looking a little weird. Kind of want a darker gray in there though. Arguably there's a better way to do this as well. Since I already have those all one color, I could do select, same, and then of course appearance. Of course I'll have to expand it. Sweet. Select one. And like I said, it just works a little differently. If you couldn't tell, there's not a lot of feedback there to like let you know as a user what's going on, right? But it is what it is, right? And arguably, I don't know, some people might find Photoshop a little bit easier in this case. But I do think it looks pretty dang clean. And it is pretty quick. So we can take that piece, select, same, appearance. Clearly everything's in that layer. It's the only thing that really stinks is you got to take every layer right back to where it came from. Which is okay. Let's just go to there, I guess. So we've already got our swatches and things like that. Let's go ahead and take care of our line weights. So I'll take one of these pieces, and I need to ungroup everything because it's still kind of solid. And you'll kind of notice that when you select on one thing and it selects a whole bunch of lines. You can also select everything, and usually scroll down, and if there isn't an option to expand, then it's of course already expanded, which is fine. So I'll take one of my red lines, select, same, appearance, and I want to basically just put these back into the layers that I had them. So not really a lot going on there. Basically my floor layer, select, same, appearance, and we'll put that back on our floors. That way I can just change the layer itself, right? I mean, I don't know why it can't just keep that in a live paint format, but I don't know, I guess it's Illustrator. So in my case, I'm gonna change the line weight. Obviously those rails are really close together, so might have to use a very small line weight for that. Not too shabby, looking pretty good. Take that purple line. Obviously I don't want purple in my drawing, so select, same, appearance, and we'll put that in my floors. So it's kind of good that you have all these layers anyway. Of course we'll change the line weight on that one. Sweet. Howdy.
You don't use the chain intro architecture at all, do you?
Just a few readings.
Do you want it in your booklist for your course for intro?
Sure.
You do want it, along with all the others. You're still using them all?
Yeah, well, not Delando.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, not Delando.
not Delando.
Kill it. Okay, but use the chain.
Sure.
Great.
All good. So yeah, where were we? Oh yeah, line weight. So let's change the line weight. And as you can see, it looks like it changed some of the other ones, but it's okay because, well, say you didn't accidentally get it on a layer or things like that. And to be fair, it's just a very different program, right? Maybe not to what we're used to, which is why we got to practice, myself included. So let's take that piece. It does look like it needs to be expanded or grouped. So obviously we want to ungroup it. And you'll kind of just notice that when you select on something, and again, it's not just the one thing that you selected. So I guess it is kind of intuitive, but you do have to be careful, and you definitely want this properties bar at your disposal. So let's keep going. Let's fix the line weight of some of the swatches I did. So select, same, appearance. Oh yeah, there you go. I accidentally took the line weight right off of them, which is okay. What's nice is it updates kind of as you go, which is really nice. Not something I'm really used to. Let's go with 0.76. It's looking pretty good so far. And I do still want to change my mullions, so let's do that. However, let's put it on a mullion layer while we're at it. So file, select, same, appearance. We'll take all those pieces. Go ahead and put them in windows and railing. Or actually, I think everything's in there now, so for right now I'll put it in ramps. Why not? Obviously we don't want blue. Maybe something dark that sticks out like a mullion, but rather light in weight. Not too shabby. Well, what's nice is now I can turn all of those off. Arguably I could just keep my ramps and actually see that I'm missing some of those lines that I need. The only thing is if I live paint again, it's gonna group everything, of course, again. So it is one of those things where you basically have to decide and do things in order. So like I said, it is definitely a final drawing post-production program, but not a big deal. I was just seeing if we have some options here. Let's go ahead and take the whole thing again. Letter K. And fill in some of those pieces. Didn't seem to get some of the other layers. Let's see what it does. So in my case, I do want to use maybe like a pretty dark mullion. I mean, why not? Go with like black. Sweet. Now, of course, I have to go in here and click on everything. So arguably, at least if this was Photoshop, I feel like it's kind of the same things, right? Either way, I'm gonna have to click on every single line and magic wand tool, right? If I'm in Photoshop, or to be fair, I'm gonna have to click on every piece in Illustrator. However, to be fair, in Illustrator, I do think it's easier to make this stuff a layer because you can just drag it onto a piece. Well, let's see what we can come up with. Got some mullions and last floor. Not too shabby. Definitely starting to get somewhere. Kind of green though. Oh, okay. Not too shabby. Not really liking the blue anymore. That's okay. Expand. And ungroup. Get that piece again. It is really annoying that it does group everything, because I feel like it messes everything that you're trying to do. Maybe there's a better way that I don't know of. So if you find it, please let me know. But yeah, let's take that blue, select same appearance so that it gets all of those blues. And let's change the blue, ungroup. Yeah, when in doubt, you gotta be careful. You definitely just wanna see that swatch. Obviously, since it put a question mark there, it was telling me that I actually have multiple things selected, right? Hopefully you guys catch that. Appearance, so now sweet, it definitely did select everything that is the color blue. So obviously I'm not going with the color blue, And nicely enough, it previews it for us, which is pretty nice. I'm gonna go kind of like a really crystal white. That looks pretty nice. And of course changes line weight, something a little more noticeable. And not 1 point, but maybe like a 4/4. Oh. Let's check it out. Not too shabby. Definitely very digital, but arguably not too bad. Let's keep going. Bless you. Let's get that piece. Let's get a sky in here. I mean, why not? Might as well get some sort of blue sky. Way too blue. And it looks like I removed one of my points. That's why I think I had that hard diagonal in there. Which is fine. I mean, I messed it up, but not a big deal. We can just put a background in. And make sure that all this stuff is on top. So in my case, I'm just going to add a background. I'm going to slide it all the way down to my layers. Call it background. Sweet. Arguably, I can even turn everything off to kind of help myself and make a rectangle. Change it. That is a very blue sky. So I'm going to go with something a little bit more light. And to be fair, I could show you guys a couple things like gradients. So we could do something like a gradient. We can rotate it 90 degrees, right? So that it's something maybe a little bit more blue at the top. So I can double click on the color swatch. Kind of give it a nice brightish blue. I think I'm going to fade it a little bit as well. That way, you know, it looks nice. And could keep this one towards kind of the horizon line, which is more or less about right there. And I could give it a little bit more blue space. And I prefer actually a lot of the white in there, and I know it's going to print darker anyway. So again, I'm trying to lighten it up even more so. It's looking pretty sweet. Turn all that back on. Nice. Now we're talking. Could add some trees, some other information. Obviously, we already know how to do some of that stuff already. But as you can see, you know, from a line drawing to this, arguably not that bad, right? I mean, I do think it is a little bit different, even than what I'm used to. But hey, here's to learning something new, right? Let's fill in the rest of this, or at least the way that I would do some of this stuff is arguably, I think, a little bit easier. So like, for instance, maybe I didn't want a gradient sky. That kind of looks tacky, a little bit off. And to be fair, I should probably, you know, take it down even a little bit more. That's probably fair, right? And will print pretty well, and arguably looks okay on the projector. However, say I still want to put in stuff like I do in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to Google Images.
Can you just do like half of it, like some part of it, and Illustrator?
You still could.
A little bit for the
Absolutely, absolutely. However, on that part 2, I'm going to show a little bit more of course, what you can do with those swatches. I also want to see if I can fix my eyedropper tool, because it looks way cooler in the video. And it actually might work just fine for you guys, but I've messed up my coding so much that I really just need to hard reset it. Anyway, let's get a sky view. So sky in elevation. That's really important because we don't want a perspective sky. And that's really pretty. Not too shabby. Let's take that one. I'm going to open it up in a new tab. And I'll probably just take a screenshot. It looks like it wants us to pay for it anyway, so sweet. So I'll take that piece.
So do you have like Photoshop and Illustrator? Doesn't get ready when you be able to download?
You should be able to. Yeah. Yeah. There's even actually some stuff you can do with AI, but I might get into that. Just because I know it a lot better for Photoshop, but Illustrator seems to have a really unique AI tool as well that, I don't know, might as well start learning it. What was it doing? Oh yeah, sky. So let's go ahead and file and place something. That's basically the way that you would import something into this space. So file, place. And what it's going to do is automatically embed it as well, or you can actually, I think there is an option to embed it. So let's take that screenshot, And say I preferred something more of a realistic sky behind this. Something that I would normally do in Photoshop, but arguably can be done in Illustrator just as well. Not too badly. And we'll go ahead and give it a lot less. Not too shabby. However, we kind of see the sky through our lines and portions like that. So I did set up a line, but it looks like Make 2D actually got rid of it. So that's okay. Let's go ahead and lock my background real quick. That way I don't accidentally move it. And to be fair, I can actually lock a lot of things, and I've gone over this a little bit, that you can add layers on top, and it's much easier to lock things, especially in this program. And go ahead and put this at the top because I want to use it as a pen tool. So in my case, I'll switch to my pen tool, which is this guy right here, pen. And I just need the normal pen. Now, this is probably the only time that I would ever allow you to draw in Illustrator. Essentially, it's already going to have O-snap for us, so it's already like trying to snap to a line. And it does a pretty good job, to be fair. But we basically just want to use this as a white layer background. And as you can see, it's making the shape in real time. Arguably covering some things right at the moment as well. But not a big deal. Arguably, this is what I would just make a polyline for in Rhino and then bring it in. But, you know, it works. And if you have a pretty simple building like this, it's not that bad. If you have a crazy chaotic building, I can imagine that this would be hell. But which is why we're doing it together in a base model. Looks like I forgot my base, so I'll go ahead and put that base in there as well. And really for the easy part, and I'm just holding spacebar to kind of pan like that, and just scrolling to get all the way to the top. I'm pretty zoomed in though, as you can see. Let's zoom out a little bit. Whoa, zooming out way too much. Go back. Computer's having a hard time with the screen recording, but that's okay. Double click. Oh, accidentally got rid of that one. That's okay. Edit undo. Favorite tool of my life. So I'm going to go ahead and put that layer close to my background, arguably right beneath it. And now what's nice is I can take that piece and I can further change it. Say I wanted a darker tone in my building, I could. In my case, I just want that white tone to pop through. So not too shabby. But yeah, not bad for a part one. Of course, we could add trees and vector lines, people, cars, all that kinds of information. Well, hopefully this gives us a better idea that swatches are available and we can use them to fill in stuff really quickly. However, some of the drawbacks of Illustrator is definitely that it groups all of our layers. So instead of usually the first thing that I have you do is change line weight, it would actually be now the last thing that you want to do. That way you can maintain the colors of your layers and easily select them. Make sense? Fair enough? Anyway, it'll get harder in part two. So let's master this one and see if we can use that eyedropper tool. Again, it's the letter I for eyedropper and the letter K is in kangaroo for live paint. So really those are kind of the only two commands we went over. And then keep in mind that the ungroup button is found in properties and the expand button is also found in properties. You can also go to object and edit, right? So if you go to edit live paint, there's also an expand option there as well. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for today. Obviously, I know we got a lot going on, studio and everything like that, so you have a full hour. So of course, either ask me questions or use this time wisely. Sound good? All right.